What's up, you guys? Tish here. Welcome back to my channel. I know that it's been a little bit, but I think this story is a good one to come back to. Seeing that it is Pride Month, I wanted to share my coming out story. For any of y'all that have no knowledge about my coming out story, if you're just now seeing this for the first time, let me tell you, you might as well just grab your popcorn and chill right now. So during this whole story, I'm going to do my best to keep it concise, although I have a lot to say. And two, I'm going to do my best to not cry. So I put down questions here which have been the most common that I've received, and I figured that I would be sharing my coming out story and answering these questions. So here we go. The first and most popular question is, when did you come out and how? So for those of you who may not follow me on Instagram or TikTok, I came out a year ago yesterday, so on July 28th, 2019, and I did it in a way where I announced it via social media. I had a whole thing planned out for how I wanted to share on my gram, and I was very fortunate enough to share my story with Scratch TV, which is a PGA Tour entity where they create content and videos and whatnot for the tour, and they were doing a Pride Month special where they highlighted 4 to 5 of us individuals who are either avid golfers or influential golfers in some way who are part of the LGBTQ community. So that's how I did it, and that's when I did it. Okay, when did you know? This question I get often as well. Basically, the moment that I got into my first female relationship, and this was not something that I knew my whole entire life. I was hit sideways just as much as my family was, and I was actually in a long-term relationship with a guy whom I thought was going to be, my sweetheart forever. We had all these plans to get married and all this stuff, and I still talk extremely highly of him. He's an amazing guy, but it just didn't work out. So when I found out was kind of soon after my ex-boyfriend and I, we went through a bit of turmoil, and he was out traveling, and it just so happened that I started building a friendship with this girl, and this friendship eventually evolved into a relationship. And believe me, there were so many times where I was just so confused. Like, I literally kept thinking, like, why am I feeling this way? No, there's no way that I could like this person. Like, this is just not possible. It is impossible. I literally kept telling myself, this is impossible. What I'm feeling is completely wrong. I kept basically putting my feelings down until finally I couldn't anymore. And, I had a really hard talk with my ex-boyfriend at the time. And then after that, I continued talking with my now ex-girlfriend, and I pursued it. I started talking to this girl in end of 2016, I think October. And I think by the time it hit December, I felt like I knew. And then when we finally connected in person and actually tried to see if we could have a relationship and being together physically, it was just so different. I felt such a different connection than I had ever had before. And that is when I knew. First people I told and the reactions. So I tried to keep it to myself for as long as I could until I knew my feelings for sure. And the moment that I had split ways with my high school sweetheart and knew that I wanted to pursue this girl, I finally contacted my childhood best friend. She is my go-to. Her name is Angela, and I called her, I remember after golf practice. I was still playing professionally at the time, and when I called her, I said, "Yo, are you free?" And she said, I'm actually at a concert right now for Gabe Bondoc, but I mean, is it an emergency? And I was like, yeah, this is ASAP emergency. We need to talk right now. And she was like, okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. And so I told her that I just broke down crying, and I said, so, how I ended it with my, my high school sweetheart. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, well, I think I like someone else. And she was like, okay, cool. And I was like, it's a girl. And I just broke. I'm like on speakerphone with her coming home from practice, and I just broke. And she was like, okay, wow. Like, she was so shocked. But at the very end, I knew she was going to be very accepting. She was just like, am I surprised? Yes. Hell yeah, I am surprised. But do I still love you? Of course. Even if you committed a crime, I'd still love you. And so she was the first person I told. And from then on out, I just kind of told my close friends one by one. It felt like a sit down, and not that everyone needs to do it this way, but I felt the need to, because for such a long time I had believed that I was straight, and so did everyone else around me. Like, I didn't have there was no giveaway from an exterior standpoint that portrayed that I could be gay. And so I told my friends one by one. Each of them were extremely accepting. But you know who weren't as accepting? The boys. Friends who were boys, which now makes sense because now we're not friends, because there were underlying feelings there, so that's canceled. So that happened. And then I eventually told a few more people, especially in the golf space, which was really big to me, which are also close friends. And then it later evolved into telling my sponsors in a very low key, not in such a way as yet where I was saying, I'm gonna come out, like, I would love for you guys to support me. It wasn't like that yet. It was very, this is who I am, this is who I love, and I'm just telling you because I was very close friends within the people who worked for my sponsors. And then my mother found out. And actually not because I told her. She was actually the last person I wanted to tell. And when she found out, she actually found out on her own, just from like mom's intuition. She just didn't understand, why would you leave your high school sweetheart? Like, everything was going fine, even though it was long distance. And she just knew that I wasn't acting normal. She knew I was hiding something from her. And she just put two and two together with the girl I was talking to, and realizing that that was a very sudden new friendship, and she just kind of guessed, and she guessed correctly. And I'll explain more a little later, but it didn't turn out to be the best scenario. However, it is, it's a lot better now. So that was who I told, and the reactions for the most part were positive. I get often, why did you do it? Why did you come out? And for one, I came out at a point, I feel like, in my career especially, where one, I felt like I was established enough, like I was in a good place to do it. I felt like I worked hard on myself and, fixed and worked through all the turmoils and all the baggage that I felt like I had. And I just wanted to be my truest self. And I felt like for the years of knowing that I was gay and putting myself out there, I personally felt like there was a huge weight on my shoulders. I felt like I was lying. I felt like I wasn't giving my all, especially during the transition of trying to figure out and navigate this relationship with this new girl and trying to handle my family. There was just a lot of pain in the middle that, I felt like I had a story to tell. That was the biggest thing. I wanted to be very honest with everyone, and I knew at some point that with being and loving sharing everything, because I love being relatable to everyone, at some point that would mean I would share the person that I'm with. It's been pretty difficult, especially having to go to events and, speak and all that stuff. The amount of times that I got, oh my gosh, I know this cute boy, or are you seeing anyone? And I was, and I couldn't say anything. I would constantly change the words. I would constantly say like, oh yeah, I am seeing someone. Oh yeah, he is doing great. Oh yeah, he actually does this for a living. Oh, I was just doing it because I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel comfortable, especially at events, to come out with the truth yet. And I was done with it. I was done with hiding it and not being true to not only myself, but the person that I love. In golf, it's actually not uncommon on the tour and the professional circuit to see gay women. It's a lot more uncommon to see on the men's tour gay men. However, there's actually quite a big LGBTQ community within the tour. Just people outside of it don't know it, and a lot of the girls are still yet not comfortable with coming out, which is also why I'm speaking out. This doesn't mean that everyone has to do it. It just, to me, felt like I knew that I would feel so much freer once I did. To the second point, going through a not very easy process of getting to this point, the things that got me through it was not the last girl I was with. It was not always my friends, but it was actually a lot of stories that I've read online or I've seen on YouTube or I've Googled. Literally, I'm over here, in 2016 Googling, how do you know if you're gay? Like, I was just so oblivious to the fact that that could even be a possibility. I was just not raised around it. There was not enough awareness around it for me. There was especially zero awareness in the golf community. So for me, it didn't seem like a possibility. Even just a couple of years ago, it was so much harder. But the people who were brave enough to come out during that time made such an impact on me to know that I wasn't alone. I didn't have any gay friends at the time. I didn't have anyone close to me that I could talk to that could really understand what I was going through. So, finding these stories online really encouraged me to want to do the same, especially, like I said, in a world like the golf world, where it's uncommon. Like, there needs to be someone to speak to it so the next generation can feel more comfortable. All right, this one's a hard one, and I'm gonna do my best to not cry. When I say that, I'm already ready to cry, darn it. But to the third point of why I did it is because of how hard it was. I felt it was necessary to share it because I know that I'm not the only one, and I hope that my story can be a light at the end of the tunnel for some other people. So, why I keep saying it's a struggle, I know I sound like a broken record at this point. I've referenced it so many times on my social, and I've never actually said it, and I question myself if this was necessary, but again, I think it is necessary, especially for those who may be struggling, is that, my biggest obstacle at that time in 2016 to 2018 was really my family. It was hard, and it's crazy because it's been a year now since I've come out, right? And the amount of stories that I've heard saying that they're currently in the same situation as me, being in 2020, is mind-blowing. And I mean, to try and keep it as real yet concise as possible is that, my family was not accepting. I told my two younger brothers soon after my mom found out, and they were so mature and they were so accepting. And I am actually 10 years and 13 years apart from my two younger brothers, and when I told them, they immediately said, what's wrong? Are you happy? Do you think that this is the right decision? And I said, yeah, I feel like I have to go pursue it. I have to know. And they said, okay. And my first brother, he's 17 now. He actually told me during that time, being like 14 or 13 or whatever, he said, don't worry, Ate. I will take care of mom for you. And that was hard. It was hard. I was, sorry. So at the time, in 2016, I was still playing professionally. And for those of you who know the process of being a professional golfer, especially a female professional golfer, it's a lot of funding yourself. And so I was still living at home, but really I was never home because I was always traveling, but I was living at home. So I kind of had no choice but to leave after my mom and my aunt, who lives at the house, did not receive the information well. And my mom's first response was she was sad. She was very sad. And understand, for those of you watching who don't understand golf culture or Filipino culture, in Filipino culture, it's very traditional. very religious, and usually Catholicism is very dominant in our culture. And so with those two things, being traditional and religious, that really got in the way of my mom and I's relationship. Both my parents are split now, and I have a great relationship with them both. But because I was much closer to my mom, especially during that time, it was inevitable for her to know. And eventually, when I pursued a relationship with that first girl who was the first to really bring to my attention that I could be attracted to a woman, my mom kind of gave me an ultimatum in some sense of, either come to your senses or kind of don't come home. And with that, I didn't come home for the next year and a half to come, and that was the most difficult time, especially to try and be there for my brothers and not be able to be around. And in between, there was just so many fights between myself and my family, and my distant family, my relatives and stuff, a lot of it pertaining again to Filipino culture. And not that I have anything against it, I actually completely understand it because that's the way I was raised. And for anyone who again is watching and thinking, oh, how could your parents be this way and this and that? Well, I'm actually very grateful for having a rather fast turnaround. It's been a couple years now, and I'm able to be at this point of 1 year of coming out. Oh, I guess it's been 4 years. 2016 is 4 years ago. Wow. But, there are people who have stories where their parents have passed and they weren't able to live their full truth. So there's obviously a lot more steps the situations in between of what happened during 2016 and 2017 between my mom and I's relationship, but that was really a battle for me that was hard to face while turning professional. That was very, very difficult, and ultimately that was a big reason why I had to stop my professional career by beginning 2018, because I couldn't even afford it anymore. I wasn't ready to be a real grown-up and pursue this relationship with this girl like I had hoped. Between her and I, we just were both broke, trying to travel, do our thing, and it just didn't work. And all while I was facing, this family turmoil, which all of my friends are they heavily know it, and they were very intertwined in it because I relied so much on my friends for just keeping me afloat, while not to mention saving face on social media, because that was a means that was helping me stay alive and literally helping me financially just keep it together when my golf career wasn't going the way I had planned. So there was just a lot of pressures on top of it. Clearly the relationship didn't work out between my ex and I, but that's okay because we're okay now, and I want the best for her, and I'm in a very happy situation now. It's been such a long road, you guys. Man, if I was documenting every day of what I lived in 2017, my goodness, you would not believe what a roller coaster I've been through. But all while I was managing the professional career, the family just constantly, hitting me up aggressively and just not being empathetic. And I just tried to be patient. I was also dealing with not the best relationship, and it was unfortunate that, I was, I think, very immature, and I think that in that moment, she was also very broken in many ways, and putting those two together was not ideal. I was really dealing with a toxic relationship in both, not just her, but I know that I'm part of the problem too, but it was a toxic relationship, a constant fight between my mom, a fight between my ex and my mom, a fight between trying to keep my career alive, being unsure of what to do, being negative, thousands in the bank, calling the credit card companies to please extend my balance. It was a hard time. And also, just this is my intro to to a female relationship, a lesbian relationship, and there were so many trying times where I literally thought, is this what a relationship is supposed to be like with a woman? If this is the case, I don't want it. I'm just gonna be single for the rest of my life. I am not happy. I'm not sure if I made the right decision. There was just so many times where I questioned myself because it was just so hard. It was crazy because in the beginning of that relationship, I had literally thought to myself, I can't wait to wake up, to message her, to hear from her. Like, reality became such a dream to me that I didn't even want to close my eyes because I didn't want to miss a moment. And then when the relationship actually happened and we thought we were going to be, spitting rainbows and just supposed to be amazing, it turned out to be, I don't want to wake up anymore. I don't see the value in waking up anymore. And I couldn't tell anybody. Except for my close friends, and that was a lot. Why is this so much harder than I thought it would be? The pressures that I was facing, a lot of it too was just pressures of just trying to keep that last relationship afloat, and I didn't want to give up on it. I'm not the type of person to give up so easily when really it was something that I should have let go, and I didn't know how to. Like I said, it was one of the first times I stepped into the culture, like gay culture essentially, and other people got involved, other people tried to ruin the relationship, and part of me thinks that it was successful, but everything that happened was supposed to happen, and I learned so much from it. So in the end, after all that struggle, I guess I cried because reliving those moments in my head are hard. But in the end, when that relationship ended with the first girl that I was with in 2018, early in the year, it was kind of always on the brink, actually, to be honest. I finally just kind of woke up and realized that I can't do this anymore. And I had real talks with some of my friends. They made it very apparent that I was losing myself, and I was not only bringing myself down, but I was bringing the people around me down, and that really hurt because that's just not my nature. I'm sure that even hearing this all now, it could be shocking to some of you to believe I even went through everything I'm saying because this was what I was hiding on social media for all that time. So when it all ended and crumbled in 2018, I had nowhere to go. I had no money. I had no more desire to play on the tour because I had nothing left in me. I had just hid everything I had on social. I had this terrible relationship with my family, or it was just severely broken because they refused to believe that this is the way I am. Now, loving who I want to love is so wrong, but I had nothing. And so what I did was I finally came back home. And when I came back home in 2018, I was broken, man. Like, I was frail. I clearly had not cut my hair. My hair was so long. As I did that, my hair was sticking up. Split ends everywhere. I was clearly not taking care of myself. You could see my clavicle just like popping through. You could almost see my sternum. That's how skinny I was. It was just so bad. And you can see the bags under my eyes from so much crying. It became a situation where I was crying every day, and try competing in a sport that's such a mental game and crying every day. You can't. It's too hard. And when I came home, my mom opened the door. God damn it, I'm gonna cry. She opened the door and she welcomed me and she said, I cannot see you like this anymore. I cannot see you like this. I didn't even have to say anything for her to know. Where's my tissue? Gosh darn it. She didn't have to say anything to know how much I went through, because you could see it. You could see it on my face. You could see it on my body. You could see just how emotionally exhausted I was. And so at that point, my mom told me, without me having to put up a fight, she finally said, I love you too much to watch you suffer like this. And I think part of the reason why I didn't want to accept this and want to accept you for being a part of the gay community is that I was afraid that your life would just be so much harder, and I didn't want you to face that. And really, she made it so much harder for me, but I'm gonna just let her go with this. And she just said, if you're gonna go through any struggles, I would rather stand by you than go against you. And she said that she would stand by me, and this time she would never leave my side. And that was huge. It was huge. You know, I remember thinking in the beginning in 2016, when I had first felt these feelings, I asked myself, are you ready to fight this fight? Are you ready to literally go against your culture and your family and all their beliefs? Are you ready to do that? I've always been a strong-willed person, but my gosh, did I come to a point where I did not even see the value in my own life. I didn't. But when my mom came around, you know, during that winter, that gave me life. And it really brought me back. And it was so good to be back home. And she helped me basically pick up my pieces and just hold me back together. My brothers were so happy to see me. You know, there were friendships along the way that got hurt, and I had to go back and mend because I wasn't listening, I wasn't hearing correctly the advice that they would give me. And so I had to properly, with a clearer mind, mend those relationships as well. And it was then that I finally kind of turned into that road of fighting for my happiness. And don't get me wrong, you know, my family, I know I just referenced my mom because she's just a major role in all of it, but you know, it was really my family in general. It was then that things got better, and they would take a step forward and take 10 steps back, then take a step forward, take 10 steps back. They would lash out and say, why can't you just find a man, just marry rich, and just, you know, whatever, or just, you know, find a handsome man who will take care of you, where, you know, they can just literally physically help you, and you don't have to go through this struggle, and they would break down. But then they'd go back and say, I'm sorry, I know, just give me time, I'm trying to understand. And I was okay with that. And so 2018 was a very big building year for me. And that's when I took a mastermind retreat, basically. If you don't know what a mastermind is, it's when you go in and you basically just tear down all your boundaries and you put your heart out there and you work through the turmoil and baggage and negativity in your life and just turn it around into positivity. And I attribute a lot of that turnaround in my life to my close friend Nikki, who was in the golf world, who was just very much literally by me through all the pain, and Christina LaCure, who was the leader of that mastermind that really helped me find who I am. And that was a big turning point in 2018, and just finally going to events and feeling free and being happier because, you know, I finally had a little bit of love back. I felt like I had no love in my relationship. I had no love in my family for this period of time, and I thought that I could stand it all, and I barely made it alive. And so having that love back from my family really healed me on a whole different level. Now that you all know how my mom reacted, because my mom found out in 2016 all the way up until the point that I came out in 2019, that left me with my dad. And that was hard. That was really hard. So even though we were already done filming for Scratch TV, it celebrated, brought, you know, all of my closest friends together. One of my best friend, who was the first person I told, even flew out to be a part of the Scratch TV piece, which you can hit the link and I'll put it into the description below. But in between the process of filming, which was early June, I knew that we were going to launch by June 27th, June 28th. So in that middle period, I knew I had to tell my dad. And man, did I wait till last second, and it was terrifying. And I was actually at my girlfriend's place when I did it, and he called me. He was just calling to check up on me, And he just said, "What's up? Where are you, by the way?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm in San Diego County. That's just where I'm at all the time." And he kept persisting. He kept saying, "Why are you always there now? You're never home, and I don't understand. Like, are you seeing someone new? You know, you could tell me. Like, I've been asking you, have you been seeing someone? Are you dating someone? Do you have a new boyfriend? Just tell me." And I was just terrified. I was just terrified to tell him, and then we were on the phone, didn't realize he was at work, which was my bad. And I took a deep breath, and after he kept, interrogating me, saying like, "Why are you always there in San Diego County?" I finally said, "Because my girlfriend is here." And he just went silent. And he was just like, "What? What do you mean?" And I said, "Exactly what I said, Dad. Like, I am gay. I have known that I've been gay for the last 3 years now, because this was in 2019 when I did it. I said, I have known that I've been gay, and I'm sorry that you're the last person to know. I'm so sorry it's taken me so long, but I was also very fearful of what you would think, and I'm also telling you now because not only am I gay, but I am coming out publicly in a couple weeks." And man, did I really throw him. He was not prepared at all. He later told me that like I would like to come visit you, and I'd like to meet and talk. And he was crying on the phone. So later that night, we talked it out, and he was just kind of piecing things together. And he was saying, "Is that why you and your mom weren't talking for a while?" And I said, "Yep, it's because she found out early on in 2016. She just had a gut feeling about it." And he would be like, "Is that why you disappeared and you just ran off and you were just always with this girl?" And I was like, "Yeah, that wasn't just a best friend, Dad, unfortunately." And after a long talk, I said to him, and I asked this to everybody that, that took it not the best, that's a part of my family. And I asked each of them, and I asked my dad, "Dad, if I were to get married, and I was to marry a woman, would you be there to walk me down the aisle?" And he just cried. He just cried, and I was crying too. And he just took a deep breath, and he said, I love you, and I can't believe you ever thought that I would never love you. And just, have patience with me. It's been a lot to process. If you were to get married tomorrow, I maybe wouldn't be ready yet, but I promise you that each day until that day comes, I promise to work on it and work on myself to be even more loving and accepting so that I will be ready to walk you down the aisle. And that got me. And that was enough for me. That was, honestly, his response was so much better than my mom's, and I'm just so glad that they both came around in the end, because at the end of my life, I really don't know what I would do without them both. I guess the reason why I'm bringing it all up, and part of the reason why I came out, is because this is common. It's common, especially in culture. It's especially common for women who may be or may appear a little more feminine, and you just don't see it coming. They go through the struggle of, oh, maybe it's just a phase, or you just never had the right guy yet. I would be rich, okay? I wouldn't even need to work if I got $1 for every time I heard those statements. This is common, and I'm here to tell you guys that there is light at the end of the tunnel, because those who truly love you, through whatever it is that is in their way, their belief, their culture, whatever it is, the people that truly love you will not leave your side. And believe me when I say that, I know that there are a lot of you who may be facing it, who have been dealing with it for 5 years, 10 years, but know that the people that come into your life in that process, they are meant to be in your life, because those who love you will not leave you. So that's why I did it, because I knew that that story is relatable to many of you. And I know it because I received so many messages about it. That was hard. This video is going to be way longer than I had thought. But to the next question is, who cares I get so many comments. When I first came out, I had everyone on board. I finally had my family on board. All my friends already knew. My sponsors were good. I didn't lose anything. So when I finally put out the post and shared it in such a way that I did, 85% was positive. And that was fantastic. But for the 15% of people who didn't necessarily receive it well were a lot of who the F care messages, and then a lot of other mean ones, which I can share in a bit. But to the point of who cares? Well, I can tell you right now that there are a lot of people struggling right now who do care. You want to know who cares? The people who are messaging me saying that you should be crucified and you should be burned at the stake, you should burn in hell. Those are the people that care. Who else cares? I don't know, maybe the person who's calling me a flaming effing faggot? Yeah, that's happened. I received a lot of hate emails. So who cares? That's exactly the point. We need to get to a point of who cares? You know, I wish that it was that easy, that I could just walk around and, you know, flaunt my girlfriend, and obviously not like PDA, just in a normal way, you know, like any straight couple. I was once straight too, okay? I know what it's like. And, you know, like it would be nice to not be verbally harassed, but to not get that judgment of simply a look or simply a gesture that makes it very clear that you're not welcome. And that's happened to me on the golf course enough times. For the people who don't know, that there's a good percentage of the girls on tour, whether it's LPGA, Symetra, or Mini Tour, you know, 20 or 30% of that group is a part of the LGBTQ plus community, and they care, and it's very, very common. There's been so many conversations within the golf world with other girls, especially. I can't speak for the men, but within the girls gay community, of just conversations saying like, no, I don't think I should. I don't think I need to say that. I don't want to lose any sponsors. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. You know how golf can be. You know, golf is so conservative. There have been situations where I've been competing in tournaments that were more in the Midwest, in places where you just kind of know it's not okay. It's just, it felt safer to not. It felt safer to pretend and just hide it. And that's not okay. Like, that's why I'm also speaking out, because I stand for the people who feel like they don't have a voice. You know, for the people that are scared to, like, this is what I'm here for. And it's very common actually in women's sports, and I don't really know the reason why, but shit, I'm happy about it. I don't see what's wrong with it. Like, it really should be there's been so many comments I've received where it's like, it should just be about, you know, being good at your sport and this and that. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. That's all I want. I only want it to be about that. But when you're receiving, you know, death threats and crazy comments, it clearly shows that people care. There are people who have a lot of hatred, who have made it very clear to me how much they hate me and want to unfollow me. Like, literally no loss here. So for anyone who has watched this far, and if any of you are parents to children who may be gay, you need to trust your kid and let them figure it out themselves, and don't force them to feel or act a certain way, especially when it comes to something like this, because chances are is that you as a parent are the last person to know. Coming from experience, and a lot of other stories I've heard, is that more often than not, the child has told everyone else and has chosen to tell their parents last because they are most fearful about what they would think among all others. And the thing is that they're so sure of themselves that they actually chose to tell you last because they're most worried about your opinion. And so when a parent says, oh, you could just be going through a phase or whatever, and completely invalidating the way they feel, I can tell you firsthand that it's not a great experience, especially when you don't give them the option to come back home. And to kids and to others, not even kids, just whoever, who may be struggling with wanting to come out or wanting to be themselves, and they're struggling right now with their parents, understand too that if it took you, for instance, if your situation is similar to mine, where it took me 23 years to figure it out, well, you have to give some grace time to your parents and your family, because if they have believed you to be straight for this long, and then suddenly you're like, I'm gay and you got to accept me and this and that, I'm gonna fight you till the end. That's the way I was. Not saying it's the right way to communicate, because if it's taken you this long, then you have to give them time as well. And then lastly, to just anyone who is teetering or questioning themselves or feeling like they're a part of the community and are afraid to step in, I just want to let you know that there's so many of us, really. We are here to welcome you with open arms, seriously. And we can't wait for you to be a part of it, because on the other side is nothing but love, which is all you deserve to feel. Well, you guys have heard it all. I've literally given, I think, the most information I've ever had in my life, and I hope that this helps at least one of you to just open your eyes to the LGBTQ community, or if you are questioning yourself and you're in sports or just whatever, I hope that this has touched you in some way. I just thought it was time to share. And like I said, I think this year, after coming out for now what's been a year, I have never laughed and smiled so much in my life, because for the first time I chose myself. I finally chose my happiness. I've always been the one to try and please others, and finally for the first time in coming out, I chose to be me. I chose to just live my truth. I chose my own happiness, and I hope that at the end of the day that you all do the same. Yeah, wow, I did it. Just if you've watched this far, just thank you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for supporting up until this point. I'm sure I'll lose some of you, but hopefully I catch you guys again for those who will unfan me after this, whatever. But for those who have stuck by me, my family, my friends, supporters, the sponsors, just thank you. That's all I got to say. So I guess happy 1 year to me, and happy Pride Month to all of you. And stay tuned. I'm sure to have a lot more videos for you guys in the future.